Have you ever noticed how some words start to lose their meaning when you hear them too much?
Like what?
Well, for me, it's those terms high functioning and low functioning when we talk about autism. I hear them everywhere, but do they actually tell us anything useful?
That's a really good point. The more I learn about this, the more I realize those labels can do more harm than good.
It's like they oversimplify something incredibly complex, right? It's
Exactly.
like describing a whole rainforest as just green. Sure, there's green there, but you're missing out on the incredible diversity.
A perfect analogy. And this article we're diving into from Cheap ABA, it really digs into that.
It's so easy to use those labels without thinking, but they just don't capture the full picture.
And one of the things that really struck me was how the article connects this to support needs.
Oh, interesting. Because you might assume someone labeled high functioning doesn't need much support, but that's not always true.
Not at all. Think about it. You could have a student like acing their advanced math class, but inside they're having panic attacks because of the social dynamics of group work.
And because they're labeled high functioning, their teachers might not even realize they need extra support.
Exactly. They might just see them as, oh, they're fine, they're high functioning.
Wow. And then on the flip side, you have people labeled low functioning who might have incredible talents that get overlooked.
Absolutely. What if someone is amazing at art or music, but never gets the chance to develop those skills because of a label?
It's like we're limiting their potential before they even have a chance.
It makes you think about the message we're sending.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
not just about being politically correct. It's about recognizing the worth of every single person.
100%. And I think that's one of the best things about this article. It doesn't just point out the problem, it gives us a path forward.
Okay, I like that. So what's the alternative?
Well, the article suggests focusing on individual strengths and challenges.
Okay, that makes sense. So instead of saying low functioning, we could say this person communicates best through writing, or this person thrives in structured environments.
You got it. It's about painting a complete picture of the individual.
And that reminds me of another great point from the article. They emphasize how important it is to listen to autistic people.
Yes, they are the experts on their own experience.
Instead of assuming we know what's best, we should ask them what kind of support they need.
Absolutely. We need to create a world that's more inclusive and welcoming for everyone.
Because ultimately it's about their lives, their experiences.
Exactly. And, the article makes a really interesting comparison.
Okay, what's that?
It says, using those functioning labels for autistic people, it's kind of like using them for people with physical disabilities.
Oh, I see.
Like, you wouldn't call someone high functioning just because they use a wheelchair.
Right, that sounds strange. You would never say that.
It just wouldn't make sense. It shows how strange it is to reduce someone to a label based on how well they fit into, a world that isn't designed for them.
Yeah, it takes away their individuality.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that, disability is just one part of who a person is. It doesn't define them.
So if we're saying these labels are harmful, then what's the alternative? How do we even begin to talk about someone's experience with autism in a way that's accurate and respectful?
It all comes down to focusing on the individual.
Okay, so what would that look like in practice?
Instead of labeling someone as high functioning, you could say something like, this person's an amazing artist, and they really focus best when they're in quiet environments.
Yeah, I like that. It feels so much more descriptive, and it acknowledges that, hey, every autistic person is unique.
Exactly. It's about painting a full picture.
It's interesting, though, because sometimes those labels are seen as a way to get people support, right? Like, if you're labeled as high functioning, you might not get the help you need.
Right. It's almost like the label becomes a barrier. And on the other hand, if you're labeled low functioning, you might not get the same opportunities.
Because people make assumptions based on those labels.
Exactly. They might not see the individual's true potential.
So we've talked a lot about why high functioning and low functioning can be problematic terms, but the reality is you still hear them everywhere.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Why do you think that is?
Well, for one, they've been around for a long time, Old habits die hard.
That's true.
And I think there's still a lack of awareness out there about the harm these labels can cause.
It's true. Sometimes those familiar terms just slip out, even when you know better. It's like we get stuck in those old ways of thinking.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people cling to these labels because they want a quick and easy way to make sense of something as complex as autism.
That makes sense, wanting to categorize things.
Yeah.
But it's not that simple, is it?
Not at all. Autism looks different for everyone, and that's what makes it so important to appreciate the individual.
So how do we move away from these harmful labels? How do we start talking about autism in a way that's both accurate and respectful?
Well, I think education is a huge part of it.
Okay, so like educating ourselves and others.
Exactly. The more we talk about the downsides of these labels and the importance of person-first language, the more we can change the conversation.
Person-first language. Like, what do you mean by that?
It's a simple but powerful shift. Instead of saying autistic person, we say person with autism.
Oh, I see. So you're putting the individual before the diagnosis.
Right. It emphasizes that they're a person first and foremost.
And it's about highlighting their strengths and challenges as an individual.
Exactly. That's how we start to build a more inclusive and supportive world for everyone.
This whole deep dive has really emphasized for me the importance of listening to artistic people. Their experiences and perspectives are so valuable.
Couldn't agree more. We learn so much by listening to each other, and it helps us become better allies.
So as we wrap up our conversation today, do you have any final thoughts for our listeners?
I think the biggest thing to remember is that every autistic person is unique. They have their own unique gifts, talents, and perspectives to share.
And we need to create space for them to do that.
Absolutely. Let's ditch the labels and celebrate the beautiful diversity of the human experience.
I love that. Well said. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this conversation has encouraged you to think about how we can all create a more inclusive and understanding world.